Why do the closest of friends become the bitterest of enemies when friendship turns sour? In today's gripping episode of Katha Yogam, we uncover the heartbreaking story of Dronacharya, whose childhood bond with King Drupada ends in betrayal and sparks a fire that changes the fate of Hastinapur forever. Hello viewers, welcome back to Katha Yogam. In the last episode, we discovered how the legendary teachers Kripacharya and Dronacharya arrived at Hastinapur and took charge of shaping the Kuru princess. But today, we go deeper. We witness why Drona, a brilliant master of arms, stepped into the palace gardens that day with a storm raging inside him. Please take a moment of your precious time to subscribe to our channel. It costs you nothing, but your support will help us bring more captivating stories from the treasure trove of Indian epics to you. As King Janamejaya seeks to understand Drona's sorrowful state, sage Vaishampayana begins one of the most emotional stories of the Mahabharata. The story begins in the quiet corners of a forest, where Drona, despite his vast knowledge and skill, lived a modest life with his wife Kripi and their young son Ashwathama. Life was rough but peaceful, until one day little Ashwathama saw other children drinking milk. Curious and innocent, he asked them if he could try some. The children, teasing him, mixed rice flour in water and gave it to him. He drank it happily, believing he had tasted milk for the first time. Drona watched from a distance as his son drank the fake milk and jumped with joy. But that joy brought him no comfort, for beneath it lay a painful truth. The neighbors mocked Drona, calling him so poor he couldn't even provide milk for his son. But Ashwathama kept laughing, blissfully unaware. Drona's heart shattered. He didn't have the courage to break his son's joy with the bitter truth. But that moment carved a deep wound. He felt helpless, crushed not by poverty, but by his inability to give his child even a simple pleasure. That night, with a heavy heart, he made a quiet decision to go ask for help. He thought of one man, a childhood friend, Drupada, now the mighty king of Panchala. They had studied together, played together, and once Drupada had made a promise that everything he owned, even the kingdom, was shared between them. With that memory close to his heart, Drona walked into Drupada's grand court, unsure and embarrassed. He stood in silence for a moment, feeling small under the golden arches of the palace. And then, with a trembling voice, he reminded the king of their old bond and humbly asked for a cow or two so he could feed his son. But what came next was not kindness, not even indifference. It was humiliation. Drupada laughed, coldly, mockingly. His voice thundered through the court, declaring that friendship was only possible between equals. A poor man and a king, in his eyes, could never be friends. To him, such a bond was nothing more than a delusion. He went further, declaring that bonds could never form between people of different classes, like a king and a beggar, the educated and the ignorant, the brave and the cowardly, an honest man and a liar. Every word was like a blade to Drona's soul. In front of his wife and son, he was not just denied, he was called a liar. Drona said nothing, his face frozen, his eyes burning. That wasn't the voice of a friend, it was worse than an enemy's. He turned, walked away slowly, but inside, a storm had begun. A silent vow was born. One day, Drupada would face the weight of those words. Drona, filled with pain and rage, made his way to Hastinapur, to the home of his brother-in-law Kripacharya, who welcomed him with warmth and comfort. But even in those quiet days, Drona found no peace. The betrayal echoed in his ears, and one day, lost in thought, he wandered into the royal gardens of Hastinapur. There, fate stood waiting. The young Kuru princes were gathered, struggling to retrieve a ball that had fallen deep into a well. Laughter had turned to frustration, but none could find a way. Drona watched quietly. Then, without a word, he picked up a bow and shot an arrow into the well with stunning precision. One arrow followed another, forming a perfect chain, until he pulled the ball out with ease. The boy stared in awe. Soon, Bhishma heard of the mysterious man in the gardens. When he arrived and saw Drona, the disciple of the mighty Parshurama, he understood immediately. A great soul had come to Hastinapur. Drona was offered the position of royal teacher to train the Pandavas and Kauravas. The same hands that once trembled in shame were now ready to shape warriors who would shake the world. On the first day of training, Drona stood before the gathered princes. His face was calm, but his heart held a desire, one that burned quietly. He said, "I have a wish. Who among you will promise to fulfill it once your training is complete?" The boys hesitated, unsure. What could a guru desire that even he couldn't achieve? The silence stretched until one hand rose. Arjuna, eyes steady, voice firm, said, "I will, Gurudev." Drona looked at him. In that boy's eyes, he saw trust, respect, and belief. Unshaken belief that his teacher would mold him into a warrior capable of anything. A tear rolled down Drona's cheek, not one of sorrow, but of joy. He embraced Arjuna, and in that moment, a sacred bond was born. A bond of faith, of loyalty, and of destiny. Even as fate would one day pit them against each other on the battlefield, their love and respect would remain untouched. In the next episode, we will dive into the fierce dedication of Arjuna, the sleepless nights, the tireless effort, and the unwavering devotion that would move Drona to make a life-altering promise. To make Arjuna the world's greatest archer, even greater than his own son. The tale of love, loyalty, and silent rivalry is just beginning. Stay tuned to Katha Yogam, where every story reveals a new layer of the Mahabharata's eternal magic. If you appreciate our work, please like and share this video with your friends and family. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to get notified when we upload a new episode.